We're glad to be with you this morning. If I haven't met you, my name is Robert Peake, and my wife's name is Vicki. And if we haven't got a chance to visit with you, we'd like to. We know most of you, have known most of you for many years, and loved you and appreciate you and what you mean to the cause of Christ, and your love for God and your love for one another. And we always are thankful for our opportunity to be with you in any way that we can. I'm going to pass around some flowers. Didn't get Vicky's permission to cut some of these, but she agreed with me when she saw them, although she wasn't sure what I plan to do with them. I want you to notice that these same kind of flowers, but they really don't look the same. Okay, I'm going to pass these around, if you will. Keep them together so you can notice the contrast between the two. Okay, and I have one here that's the same illustration. You notice one of these flowers looks pretty healthy and it really looks good. The other one doesn't look quite so great. Okay, so notice the contrast. Helen, remind me to tell you a little story about that lily there, okay? There's a story behind that. Okay? You notice one of those flowers really looks healthy and strong, and the other one doesn't look that way. And if I don't forget, I'm going to use that for an illustration. I'll probably completely forget it. But that's my intentions are honorable in the idea, although my memory is a little more suspect sometimes. I want to share some thoughts with you this morning about a thing which has been of concern to me and just my own personal just observation about something that I consider to be. We have an old boy with us. Bobby Swope is with us. I've known Bobby and his family ever since my days in school at Kirby. Vicki and I recently went to a reunion. My class graduated about 60 years ago. Okay? And so I have a history. Vicki graduated into Queen. She grew up in a large metropolitan area, the Queen. I grew up in the suburbs of Kirby, a place called Daisy. And so, although I was born in the Queen, okay, but my family migrated. We were immigrants to Daisy, and I grew up from there on in Paradise, also called Lake Greasy. And so, but Kirby is where Bob and I have our roots. Went to school there, and love and appreciate him. And if you felt like you didn't have a friend in the world, you ran into Bobby Swope, you would know you had one person that cared about you. That's the kind of guy Bobby is. So I don't know if he gets to be here on a regular basis, but I'm glad to see him today for selfish reasons. So we pass the flowers around. If there's any of these kids that want one, or any of you ladies want one of those, I don't want them. You're welcome to them. One of those is a purple coneflower, and that's my favorite flower. One reason is because you can't kill them. Once you get them growing, they're very hardy. And I like things, I don't like store-bought flowers. They're prettier, but they're not, oftentimes they're not very hardy. The purple coneflower can withstand any kind of climate, and it'll be there next year. There'll be some more beside it. And the butterflies love them. It's the favorite flower of the butterfly, the state butterfly. You know we have a state butterfly? Well, we do. And it's called the Diana fritillary. And Vicky and I watch them every day swarming those purple coneflowers. They love them. I can't smell anything, but those things, they can track those things down. And so if you have any, you know what I mean. I never see a butterfly coming to a lily, but I like to look at them. Vicky does. Vicky likes it. That's good enough for me. All right. I'd like to use that for an illustration later. Probably forget it. I want to talk some about the gospel this morning. The gospel. And my concern is that we try to do all we can to be sure as God's people who have heard the gospel at some time in our life, who have learned in some way the good news that the Son of God, Jesus, came to this world, lived a perfect, sinless life, which you and I don't know anything about. Okay, we all have messed that up. But he didn't. But he lived a perfect life for a reason. And so he could offer himself as a perfect, sinless sacrifice for the sins of the world. As we sang earlier in one of our songs, that he bore our sorrows, he bore our griefs, not his own. Okay, I did that just to see if we were listening. No, I don't know if I did that or not. But now I know how, Judy, now I know how those deer feel out there on Starks Creek when they hear something or feel something. Okay. I think that was a reminder that I have 5 minutes left. Okay. I'm sorry for the distraction, although it makes it more exciting, doesn't it? I mean, if I wasn't, I don't worry about y'all going to sleep. I worry about me going to sleep. Well, I said to someone once, I was still preaching then, before I became an antique, an artifact. I said, a preacher, and they were frustrated about people going to sleep during the sermon. And I'm thinking, well, I said, I don't worry about people going to sleep when I'm preaching. I worry about whether or not I'm going to. Y'all don't get that? But anyway, so, okay. I'm scared to move. Okay. So, the gospel is the good news of Christ has come to this world and lived among us a perfect life as a sinless Son of God, but he didn't come here for his own purposes. He came here for our sake. He came on a redemptive, saving mission from eternity to earth to bring salvation to the world, to bring life to the dead, to bring light to the darkness, so that God would walk and talk among the humanity that he loved, and then ultimately offer himself for the sins of the world. The innocent would die for the guilty. the sinless would die for the sinful on the cross of Calvary, so that we could have remission. We could not pay for our own sin. We could not remove our own guilt. We could not fix our problem that we created. But He did at the cross. And then the third day after, rose bodily from a tomb, a grave, to give us the promise of victory even over the cemetery, which is a frightening thing to contemplate, the cold, cold ground. But Jesus said, I've got that covered too, if you will turn to me. And so the gospel is the story of that. It is the announcing, the publicity of that, those historic facts, so that we could know who He is, what He's done, and how we can receive the blessing of that. That is basically what brought you and me to know God, to know Christ. And then also that is what brought us together, because what you believe about that and what I believe about that are the same thing. So since we believe the same historic evangel announcing of the good news, then we can be together as believers who call upon the name of the Lord and are saved by the good news of Jesus. That's why it's called good news. Okay. It's a lot of bad news. It's hard to turn on the news without getting bad news. Bad news attracts people. This is good news. And so you say, well, that's no problem. We got that down. Well, maybe so. Well, I'm not sure that we're being fair with it sometimes and giving it the attention that it deserves. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not. But I wish I was. Okay, because I'm talking about people like me even. Am I giving the gospel the place that God wants it to have? Okay. And so, with that in mind, we'd like to think about what place we give to the gospel in our thinking, in our lives, in our pulpits, in our work as a church. What place does it have? Or does it even really have much of a place? Let me share with you what I mean. When Paul talks about the gospel, you know what place he gave it? Well, in these new Bibles, the pages are so thin because paper is so expensive, you can't even turn the pages very often. But I just got it done. Paul said in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, he said, and there was some confusion in that church. These were people who had believed the gospel, but they were struggling with some aspects of the resurrection that were causing them to stumble. And he said, well, let me remind you of what you believed at one time. I'm not sure why you people are where you are in your misunderstanding. But I know what you believed at one time. you believe the same thing that I did. And then he says, I declare to you, in verse 1 of chapter 15, I declare to you the gospel which I preached to you, which also you received and in which you stand, by which also you are saved if you hold fast that word, that gospel message, which I preached to you, unless you believed in vain. For, here it is, here's the place he gave it. I delivered to you first of all that which also I received. So Paul didn't manufacture his message. Okay? He was given his message by the Lord. That must always be the case for the one who claims to preach the gospel. It cannot be a kind of preaching or a kind of message that you concoct or you manufacture or you put together on your own with your own thoughts. It must be the message that only God can give you. It doesn't come from you. You don't have any claim on it. You don't have the right to claim. God gives you this word. Your job is to give that word to the people. That's the purpose of the evangelist. God gives you this message, and he called it in his book. This is God's book, not man's book. Man didn't create this. We just sort of pieced it all together. It was given to us from above. This is not our truth. This is his truth. Our purpose is to share it and tell it, the story, tell the gospel to others, just like somebody told it to us. We need to remember who we are and who we're not. Paul said, I give it first place. He said, I delivered you first of all, at which also I received. That Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, that he was buried, that he rose again the third day according to the Scripture. This phrase, I delivered to you first of all, means this is the most important thing I gave you. The Apostle Paul, I think you will agree, taught many very critical, very significant, very important things about life, about eternity, about living for Christ, about family, about anxiety, about hope, about peace, about love, about faith. Paul taught many profound things about this and much more. You will agree? You will agree? Yes. But he says the main thing that I ever spoke to you about is the first thing I ever spoke to you about. It's the gospel of Jesus Christ. So Paul kept the gospel in his thinking and in his ministry and in his teaching, in his work for Jesus. He intentionally kept the gospel on the front burner. You don't know what I mean? He did. What do you think he's saying to me? He said, preacher man, you better do the same thing if you're going to be a gospel preacher. You may just be a preacher, but you're going to be a gospel preacher, a gospel preaching preacher. Or if you're going to, as a Christian, be a gospel living Christian. or as a church, going to be a gospel-promoting church. Remember that I gave it priority over everything else. So maybe you should. I think that's what he's saying. And that's why he said in Romans 1, verse 16 and 17, I'm not ashamed of the gospel. I wonder sometimes in our culture, we almost are. There's a lot of pressure on us now to not even talk about the gospel, not even talk about Jesus as being the way to God. We're called all kinds of names if we do that. For being that narrow-minded, that bigoted, that dogmatic, and so there's pressure to leave the gospel out of our conversation. Paul's gospel, in our times, in our culture. But just remember what Jesus said in John 3. The darkness has always hated the light. And our culture is getting darker all the time. We have never needed God more than we need Him now. And we want Him less. We'd rather manufacture our own. Okay? And so we're just really messing things up as a culture. A long time ago, fulfilled what Isaiah said in Isaiah chapter 5. Where men call darkness light and call the light darkness. We've got everything backwards. We're calling things okay that are not okay at all. And we're calling things right that are never going to be right. And we're calling things wrong right. And we're calling things that are right wrong. We've lost our way. And the church is in the middle of all this mess, trying to figure out how to help people. Paul said, no matter how you deal with this mess, in your service for God, in your personal life, and in your ministries as a church, give priority to the gospel. That's where hope is. That's where life is. Well, I think Paul was concerned about, even in his day, so much harder for him. He had no Bible, no New Testament. Paul was trying to equip men and train men and teach them as much as he could, as fast as he could. He was constantly persecuted for teaching and preaching the gospel, imprisoned for it. He sought out others to commit the message to them. Why do you think he told Timothy just before Paul died he was in prison for the last time? He knew it. Timothy knew it. His friends knew it. He says, the time of my departure is near. I have fought the good fight. I have run the race. I have finished my course. Henceforth there is laid up a crown of righteousness for me. He knew where he was headed, but he knew what was coming, and that is more persecution, more pressure for the name of Christ and for the gospel's sake. And Paul knew he was going to be killed. And I think he was worried about the gospel being killed. I think he was concerned about when he died, was the gospel going to die out? I think that's why he tried so hard to pull others around him and teach them and train them as much, as quickly, thoroughly as he could, especially Timothy. You know what he said to Timothy just before he died? He said, "The things you have heard from me among many witnesses, commit those things to faithful men who will commit it to others also." Why do you think he told Timothy that in his dying words? What do you think he was saying? Timothy, keep the gospel in first place in your heart and in your ministry. It's your only hope. It's the only hope of the lost around you. Timothy, get others around you to understand the gospel. And then help them learn how to get others to understand the gospel. Why? Because if we don't, what's going to happen to the gospel when we die? It's going to be gone. We're going to be looked at as failures. We've got the only hope for the world. So, Timothy, be faithful to the message of the gospel. And help others do it. So others will do it. So others will do it. Far beyond our generation. Far much farther than we can see or imagine in history. So the gospel will continue to prevail and bring hope to the world. I think that's what was going on in 2 Timothy. The last thing is Paul's dying words were not about himself. It was about the gospel. So important, church. So important. We can take it for granted if we're not careful. Well, that can't happen, Robert. That's not going to happen. Folks, it's happening all the time. It's been happening for a long time. Okay? So how so? Well, let me cut out some of this so we can get to the main part, the main application. We may not lose the word gospel. We may even use the word gospel. But if we're not careful, we can lose the significance of it in several ways. First of all, we can lose the priority of the gospel. That's what we talked about in 1 Corinthians 15. We can, as a church, lose sight of the fact that we're trying to do a lot of things to serve Jesus. Our intentions are honorable. Our efforts are noble. Time, money, work, serving others, trying to personally and collectively be the people of God in a world that needs to see Jesus. So we are the people that bring light to a dark culture. We are the chosen in Christ. We are a blessing to a suffering world. Don't underestimate how important you are. In the midst of that, keep the gospel as a priority. Don't care how you go about doing that, just do it. A priority in your work, in your praying, in your preaching. A pulpit without the gospel is not worth having, and a preacher without the gospel is not worth hiring. Sorry. You don't educate yourself beyond the gospel. You don't outsmart the gospel. It is the word people need. A large variety of things can be taught and need to be. I've taught from virtually every book in the Bible. Sometimes said a lot more probably than you wanted to hear, and others did. But the Bible is a different kind of book. Okay? And there's so much in it that's so relevant, so important, so helpful. So we need to teach the whole counsel of God. But the gospel must remain the beacon. It must be priority. And then also, if we're not careful, we can lose the gospel by losing the urgency of the gospel. What do you think I mean by urgency? What do you think I mean by urgent? Yeah. Yeah, it needs to be done yesterday. Right? Kind of reminds me of work in the ER and the importance of the ER. What do you see in hospitals in ER? Usually you see urgent situations, right? When you see ambulances driving by, sirens going off, what do you think about it? You ever called 911? We have. May do it again. Can't quite remember the numbers anymore. Was it 9? Was it 1? But see, what do you think about it? What urgency? Can't put this, it's too serious. Put this off. Got to act now. Urgent. Right? Right? Are we okay? It's urgent that I get this sermon done. It's urgent. Let y'all go eat. There's an urgency. If you lose the urgency of the gospel as a church, if you're not careful, you're losing part of the gospel, what it's for. It's too big, folks. It is too heavy. It is too serious. It's too important to put it on the back burner. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm not even mad. I'm too tired, too old to be mad. Spent my whole life being mad. How much good did that do? But you follow me? If you lose the urgency, notice the evangelism explosion in the book of Acts. Man, they didn't waste any time at all. Buddy, when that thing broke loose, man, it just went everywhere. The life and ministry of the Apostle Paul, he never stayed in one place over 2 years, and that was Ephesus. And that's because it stunk so bad there. He had to stay longer. It was so fouled up. Okay? Always on the go and always on the move. Doing what? He said, I became all things to all men that I might by all means save some. He said, I was driven, had to get it done. Time was wasting. Why? Folks, life is short. I'm almost 80. I think 78. Life is short. In Job 14, Bible compares life to a flower. It appears for a little time, fades away. It's like these flowers. What did you notice? What did you notice about the purple flowers? Did they look the same? The one is in full bloom, right? How'd the other one look? Kind of sick, kind of old, and kind of wore out, and kind of dead. See, right, there's one there. Pastor Harks, hold it up, we can see it. There's one. See, isn't it pretty? And that's the way life is. Life is a blessing, folks. And we bloom, and we're pretty. And we're here to serve God and to know Jesus and please Him and love Him and to live for Him. But guess what, though? It's like a flower. Yeah. There's one. Okay, see, that one looked pretty rough there. All right, I think it's had, thank you. I think it's had a little help. And, okay, And so what's happened here? Well, it's on the way out. Guess what? So are we. Life is that way. No, it's a window of opportunity. When you're young, you can't imagine being old. Okay? There's a window of opportunity in our lives. There's no guarantees. And the Bible compares it to a flower. For a while, and it's gone. That's why we need to be urgent. Smell the flowers and look at the flowers while we can. Bloom as a flower while we can. But the urgency of getting the gospel to the lost, if you lose it, we might lose some souls we could have reached. So as churches, if we're not careful, if we lose the urgency, the importance, the urgency of trying to talk with as many people as we can, as soon as we can, any way we can, creating opportunities, seizing opportunities, urgency. Okay? Another way we could lose it, we lose that. And then I'll close with this. I'll close with one of these. We could lose the priority of it. We could lose the urgency of it. We could lose the publicity of it. By that I mean getting it out. You find something as good as the gospel, I mean, you win the lottery, folks. There's nothing like it on earth. You have Jesus. You have nothing this world could buy or give you. You have something you can keep forever. The cemetery itself can't take it away. Bad health can't take it away. Bad luck can't take it away. Even bad decisions can't take it away. If you turn it over to Jesus, He cleans it all. He gives you a new life. John chapter 3 describes you as being born from heaven, not from earth. You're born from above in Jesus. It's a brand new start, a brand new life that lasts forever. How can you not talk about that? Well, I don't know, but we don't. Historically, we haven't. According to research, 3 out of 4 active Christians, by active Christian, we're talking about folks who attend church at least once a week. I don't know who sets up this criteria. But 3 out of 4 agree that we need to be talking about the gospel to the lost. 3 out of 4 active Christians agree we need to be doing that. 75%, right? But guess what? Only 1 out of 10 do it. Where is the disconnect between 3/4 of us saying we need to go do it? Where's the disconnect down to only 1 out of 10 ventures to try? I blame people like me for a lot of that. Historically, what we've done as preachers, we've fussed at the church or griped at us or tried to encourage us by saying, we need to be talking about the gospel. You need to be telling people about Jesus. You need to be sharing your faith. You ought to be doing more of that. And so people leave saying, yeah, Yeah, I need to be doing more of that. You're right, preacher. Or we have others leaving saying, feeling guilty and like failures because they'd like to, but they don't know how. And they feel like losers. That hasn't helped us. Somewhere there's a disconnect. And I don't fuss at the church about this anymore. I think people like me have kind of not helped bridge the gap. But here's the challenge. The gospel is news, right? What do you do with news? You publish it. Publishers get the word out. Publicity. People sometimes pull publicity stunts. We say that's a publicity stunt. What are we saying? They're just trying to get attention, right? Well, we need to be getting attention to the gospel. Evangelizing, publicizing. I think the challenge is, how can I do that personally? Is there anyone who can kind of sit down with me and say, here's some ideas, here are some ways you can do it. Which of these ways do you think most fits you and you feel most comfortable with talking about Jesus? How can we help people find ways to talk about their faith? How can we connect instead of disconnect with that publicity problem and getting the message out? Right? This is about all I can say today.
We got to get to know each other, Robert.
Sir?
We got to get to know each other.
I can't hear it.
So we got to get to know each other.
Get to know each other would help, wouldn't it? I could talk with you about this a little bit. I've done some of this. I have saved a few souls. I'm talking about privately. We've saved a few. You know what I think about? I haven't saved near enough. That's what I think about. I don't know really how many I have, Vicki. I didn't keep records. Hundreds. I don't know how many. I've tried to. Established and coordinated evangelistic ministries in 3 churches, besides doing pulpit work, because I wanted to get the gospel to the lost and wanted to help people learn how to do it. However many I have been able to reach, what bothers me is I haven't reached enough people. Haven't baptized enough people, haven't told enough people about Jesus. I feel bad about that. Okay? But each of us can participate in that in some way. Don't expect the preacher and pay the preacher to do it. The preacher shouldn't be willing to do that. Too often I was. We need to help each other publicize the good news. We have something good to talk about. It sounds like I'm mad. I'm really not. I'm not upset. I lose a lot of sleep, but it's not over this. Okay? Okay. Just wanted to share with you how important it is not to lose the gospel. All right? Here's something interesting, John, I was thinking about. How you doing?
Good.
Appreciate you.
You too.
Told you that lately?
Not today.
In interviews for, like, you go in, try to get a job. In interviews with the elders or whoever, You know, sometimes it's interesting questions we ask a prospective preacher to decide whether or not we're interested in them. The questions we don't ask them. You know a question I've never been asked? I've never had elders on a forum or in a group meeting or a church in a meeting say, Robert, talk to us about the gospel. What do you mean? Well, just tell us what you know about the gospel, what we should know. We'll listen. I've never been asked that in an interview. You know something else I haven't been asked? Robert, tell us what you know about Jesus. Never been asked that question. See, we just assume that the guy got all this down. He's going to help us get it down. We just assume things. Well, I'm not in charge of that, running all that for the world. I just think sometimes we assume everything's cool, and we have a full appreciation and understanding of the importance of these things. But do we really? It's just a thought. Yes, it's just a thought. Okay, I've been asked some weird questions too, but I haven't been asked what I would consider the gold star question. You know, like the gospel. It's just a thought. I don't know. All right. Well, I'm going to leave you with this. If anything has been said today through all of this that can encourage you to be interested in the difference Jesus can make in your life and what He already has done because He loved you, He gave Himself on the cross for you and brought about this wonderful announcement of good news to the world that a son has come to this world, a child has been born. You shall call His name Jesus, for He shall save His people from their sins. If you're interested in that, you believe that Jesus did that for you, and He did. You'd like to know more about that. There's some people here who know that real well, who would like to talk with you about the difference Jesus makes, and how He loves you, and how He can help you. Well, if we can minister to you in any way through this church, we'd love to try to help. And if you'd like to let us know how to do that today, we'll be glad to listen. You know, while we stand together and sing this song.